Assalamu alaikum to the listeners and the viewers of The Real Story on ZMC Network. My name is Mr. Ali, the host, and thank you for joining me on this Thursday evening. Today we have a topic that is a concern for all of us, for those of us that have family abroad, for those that may be wanting to travel because we've got parents abroad, we want to have a bit of a break. There's new enforcement restrictions that have come in place by the government from this Monday, the 15th of February, and we will be discussing that. But before my show officially starts, as always, I'd like to start off by sharing the latest COVID dashboards for Birmingham. So we have seen roughly a third decrease over the previous week. So the current cases that we have for Birmingham are 215 per 100,000, which is a decrease by a third. The following four wards seem to be the highest. Handsworth Wood, 378 cases per 100,000 population, followed by Garrett's Green, which has 355, Ward End, 330 cases per 100,000 population, followed by Alam Rock, which has 326. So vaccination numbers are now up to 16 million. The age group now that are being prioritized are those between 65 and 69 as well. People that are at home, care homes, people over the age of 80 and 70, roughly 95-96% have now been vaccinated. The BAME community, the Muslim, the Pakistani community are still lagging behind, roughly around 50% of where they should be as well. So we still need to encourage, reassure for people to get not only tested, but also to make sure they honor their vaccine appointment. So back to today's topic, which is all about the international COVID-19 travel restrictions. Today I have Asif Mukhtar, who is the owner of Vaneet Clinic, which is one of the official approved testers and providers of PCR tests based in Solihull Hill, who's going to help me talk about the restrictions. So, a real warm welcome to you, Asif. I hope you're well, and I hope you're keeping safe.
I'm glad to be back on your show.
Yeah, thank you, Asif. So, the whole situation is very fluid. We've seen a huge spike of cases around November and December, and it was inevitable after the Christmas get-together that there was going to be a lockdown. Now we're almost at the end of February, and this week at the start, 15th of February, the government announced a series of rather serious lockdown, and which has real ramifications for people that may already be abroad that wanted to come back, and those that are from a red list countries. There are 33 in total, or maybe those that were planning to have a bit of a break with their families, to get a bit of sun before the school recommences, or for those that people that were thinking of going visiting their loved ones as well. So when the announcement was made and it's come into force, what was your first reaction, Asif?
My first impression was that this was something that should have happened a long time ago. Now, if you look at countries like Australia, this is something that they implemented this time last year, and now you can see they're reaping the benefits of this restrictions, because the country's almost gone back to normal. So what's happened here is it was inevitable, but it's maybe it's never too late, but it happened a long time ago.
No, most definitely as well. And the raft of changes that have been introduced, myself, yourself, we have a close idea of what's going on. But it is for the normal Hussein or Joe Blogs on the street, it is a real minefield to make sure they're aware of what the restrictions are, what the guidance are, because they are heavy sentences, not only in terms of custodial, but also in financial penalties.
Most definitely, especially to know quite a lot about community do tend to travel to the United Arab Emirates, and these
Yes.
is one of the countries that is on the red list. So they need to know that if they are traveling to Dubai or Abu Dhabi and they're coming back by the Emirates, that they will have to quarantine in the hotel for 10 days at a substantial cost.
And also, the government is absolutely serious, not only in terms of announcing these very heavy restrictions and the penalties that go along with them, but also in terms of how swift they have been implemented. We've had a case now in Birmingham, I think it was on the first day, whereby we've had one person who wasn't aware that he had to quarantine himself in a hotel, and he has been fined. There were a group of 4 travelers that actually were trying to hide that they had actually been or were in transit from Dubai, and when they landed, they came from Turkey in the end via Dubai route. When the customs officials found out that they were actually lying, that they had been into Dubai, they got £10,000 fine each, which is really, it's a very, punitive
No,
action, isn't it?
most definitely. But the thing is, they have to do this because at the moment, the UK is doing quite well with their vaccination program, and
Absolutely.
she's quite aware that there are new variants that are coming up. And what the UK is trying to do is make sure that none of these variants is allowed to enter the UK. And if it is entered into the UK, what they want to do is make sure that they'll be able to track it and find out exactly where it's come from and how to best to deal with it. Hence the reason why that these measures are quite strict.
Very strict. I mentioned about the 10,000. That is on top of the cost for staying in and quarantine in a hotel as well. So in total per person, you're looking around 1,200.
Yes.
£12,000 fine in total cost per group as well. So moving onwards as well, I think it's important to stress to our viewers that unless it is on educational or medical grounds, there is absolute no other legitimate reason why you should be traveling internationally. And the reason why is because not only protection for us here, but also for those people who are going to visit as well. Because we know, and we're going to touch on this also, a huge number of people are actually now buying some fake PCR test as well. And for me, that's just absolutely abhorrent. And that just shows how careless we can be as well. So before we go on the PCR testing, I think it's worth importing, so breaking the show down to cover, first of all, what the rules and regulations are for those 33 countries that are in the red list, and then for the other countries such as Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, that don't come under the red list as well. So first of all, those red list countries, which include, as you mentioned, Dubai and Abu Dhabi as well, and Portugal, the one that's in Europe as well. So can you just go and try to give us a bit of an understanding what the rules are, what the regulations are, and what needs to be done?
Okay. Well, you need to know that if you're coming via a red list country, you have to at least 2 days beforehand. You need to book yourself what they call the managed quarantine package, and what that involves is that you have to book your hotel quarantine at a cost of £1,750, and what that
Wow.
cost is, what that involved, the cost entails is the cost of a 10-night stay at a quarantine hotel, 2 COVID tests, and the transfer from the airport to the hotel. Now
Yeah.
that that cost,
And the food as well, I would imagine.
yeah, definitely, but that cost is just for one person. Now, if you have an additional person, then there's an extra cost of £650 per person or any child above the age of 12.
Wow.
For a
Wow.
child
Wow.
age of 12, it's an extra £325 for 10 days.
So
Right.
these people, once they land, and this is going to be booked in advance of actually arriving into the UK, they have to stay in a hotel of a government's choosing for 10 days. Is that right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, what they need to do is before they land back in the UK, they need to have already booked this package. If they haven't, they've received an additional £4,000 penalty fine, up to £4,000, plus the cost of the quarantine. So it's very important that this is done at least 2 days before you return back to the UK. And
Most
in
definitely.
addition
And
to
that's
that,
the whole purpose of doing today's show is I can bet you as of I would say 90% of people, both here and those that have travelled abroad, aren't aware of what these new regulations actually mean for them.
no, but definitely, and it's important to note that if at the Scotland it's slightly different, is that wherever you arrive from, you automatically have to quarantine in a hotel for 10 days. The UK has their red list of countries, but uh, as you are aware that the situation is changing almost on a daily basis. So those people who may have travelled somewhere that's not on the red list, thinking that they will escape the quarantine, tomorrow you don't know what might happen.
No, absolutely. So these are punitive measures, but you can understand why the UK government has put these very heavy restrictions on anyone coming to the UK. And at the moment, the Labour Party are also lobbying the government to ensure that these red list countries are removed and all overseas and international travel coming into England are also having to quarantine in hotels as well.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if that actually does happen, because this is what's happening in Scotland, and this is what happened in the other countries across the world that had this quarantine. Of course, so in England, I'm sure the same will happen.
And also, with the genomic testing as well, also there's a lot of new variants being identified, and we know that some variants are resistant to the AstraZeneca and to the Pfizer vaccine as well. So hence why they don't want that new strain coming into the England and the UK border.
I was asked this question just but only yesterday, saying because when you do come back into the UK, you have to purchase two COVID tests. Now, these tests can only be purchased via the government online portal, and the reason why that is that these tests are actually testing for these new possible variants that might come into the UK. So anyone's thinking that once I come back into the UK, I could do another private test uh, from uh, from a clinic such as myself or any other test provider, it will not be valid. So it's very important that they
Okay,
do
okay,
test by the
from an
government
official
website.
provider. No, no,
No,
most
no, no.
definitely. No, no, and I could and I could understand why they're saying that. And the government has also done a lot of preparatory work because what they have done is they've got just under 5,000 rooms agreed with the hotels across the country. I think there's London and Birmingham are the two main cities where all international overseas travel will be having to quarantine. And the only reason they can leave their room is for exercise under exceptional circumstances. If they've got a bereavement of a close family, they have to attend the funeral, or if they are seeking medical assistance for themselves. Otherwise, they have to stay cooped in their room. Their breakfast, their lunch, their evening dinner is all in their own private rooms as well. So this is not a holiday stay in the hotel. This is actually their proper quarantine.
Yes, most definitely. And also there's the cost implication, which really a substantial amount, especially if you have, I don't know, a family of even for one person looking at almost £2,000. So there's the
You
cost
know,
implication.
Asif, you mentioned that sort of PCR test that you have to undertake as part of that overall 1,750 quarantine hotel package. So what happens if you one of those tests at day 2 or 8 becomes and comes back positive? What are the consequences of that then?
Okay, what happens is, say, for example, that you take the test on day 2 and that comes up positive, then you need to quarantine an additional 10 days from the date of the test coming positive. And what that will also involve is an additional daily charges as well. So any additional day that you quarantine above the 10 days will cost you £152 per person
Wow.
per stay. And if you
So I think it's worth just repeating that. So my understanding is that initial 1,750 is up to 10 days. However,
days,
if one of those tests at day 2 or 8 comes back
yes,
positive, then from that date you have to stay for a further 10 days. And any
10
extra
days,
day from day 10, you have to pick up the cost at the hotel.
yes. So for one adult, it's £152 per extra day.
Per extra day. So, for
Yeah.
example, the day 8 is the one that is positive. So you got to stay for another 10 days. So 8 more
Yes,
days of 150. You're looking at another 1,200 £1,200.
yes. And it gets little bit more complicated as well. Say, for example, you test negative on day 2 and day 8, but on day 9 you develop symptoms of coronavirus, then you'll have to remain in quarantine. And obviously, that
Oh
cost
wow.
implication you have to pay yourself. It doesn't
Yeah, no, most
automatically.
definitely. I
So
was
I was
going to
about to say,
say, what if people fail to book those hotel quarantine packages, or they don't undertake the PCR tests, or as those 4 individuals, they're trying to conceal, trying to hide from the border customs, from the airport staff, the police, where they've come? What are the financial and the custodial sentences?
at the moment, you're looking up to a fine up to £10,000 and a maximum custodial sentence of 10 years. Now, say, for example, you fail to book your quarantine package on your return back to the UK, what will happen then is that you'll receive a penalty up to £4,000 plus the cost of your stay. So there is no
Wow.
getting away from it. No one you can't blame ignorance on this part because everybody knows
No,
now that.
no.
Yeah,
No, no,
so
most definitely. And what about the, for example, they failed to take the PCR tests. My understanding is there's £1,000 fine for each PCR test they failed to undertake as well. So there's a lot of financial penalties involved. Anything more to say before we go on to discuss the non-red list countries?
I think we covered the main points for the red list countries.
Good, good. I've just got a couple of comments here that I'm going to read out. If that's okay. Walaikum salam, everyone. I hope everyone is okay. Even children over 5 years have to pay for the COVID-19 test and hotel. Well said. I think that's right, isn't it, Asif? Yep. Thank
That's
you.
correct.
I am very sympathetic with people whose loved ones are sick abroad, but there's absolutely no reason for them to travel during the current pandemic and lockdown. We had people dying in the UK during the first lockdown, and they couldn't see them during the final hours or even attend. Absolutely, Javed, that is a real good point, really. Here we have suffered as well, where people haven't been able to attend janazah, funerals, haven't been able to go to care homes, or haven't been able to say their final farewells to their immediate family. So it has been tough on everyone. I agree. Javed followed up by, even if you are lucky enough to travel to see your loved ones, by the time you reach there, the chances are they will be buried. We have technology such as Zoom and FaceTime which should be used. I'm a firm believer that your du'as will reach the deceased wherever you are. There is no need to travel during the current lockdown and regulations unless you are prepared to pay for the COVID tests and hotel costs. The taxpayer can't be expected to be to bailing out every time. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So now we've covered the red list countries. Now we're going to move on to non-red list countries, and Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, these sort of countries come in those non-red list countries. Asif, do you want to talk through what is the requirement for those people that are going to Pakistan or alternatively are now departing to come back to the UK?
Okay. If you are considering traveling to Pakistan, then you need a negative COVID PCR test undertaken 3 days before your date of departure. That needs to be taken by an approved clinic that is registered now to provide these PCR tests. That's on when you leave in the UK. When you anyone think about returning back to the UK from Pakistan or India or Bangladesh, what you need to do then is have another COVID negative test undertaken 2 days before your date of departure. Also, 2 days before you are coming back to the UK, you need to purchase an additional two COVID tests from the government website that will have to undertake on day 2 and day 8 of when you return back to the UK. Once you come back to the UK, you need to fill out a passenger locator form. And from that form, you need to enter the details where you'll be staying for the next 10 days. Most likely will be your home, or if you're staying with family or friends, you'll be quarantined there for 10 days. Once you quarantine for those 10 days, you'll have to do 2 tests on day 2 and day 8 of your stay. And if you do happen to test positive within those 2 days, you'll have to quarantine an additional 10 days.
Wow. So again, quite a lot of information to take in, really. So I think it's worth just summarising. So in total, there are 4 PCR tests that you have to undertake if you are travelling to a country and returning. So one is when you depart from the UK, you have to undertake a PCR test, and that has to be negative. Then when you leave, and for example, you stayed for a week or 2, and now you're ready to come back, you have to take another PCR test within 72 hours of departure, and that has to be negative. But you've mentioned something now that you also have to purchase before you even get on the plane 2 further PCR tests when you land back in the UK shores, England shores, for a test to be undertaken at day 2 and 8. So that equates to 4.
Yes, and these 2 additional tests, there are tests that will be sent to your home address, and you'll have to do this test yourself and send them off. Now, the cost of these 2 tests are £210, and there's no getting away from it. You have to do this, and if you purchase prior back to your return to the UK, there's a fine up to £2,000 in addition to the cost of these 2 tests.
You know, after what you just said, whether you're a red list country or not, you'd be absolutely mad to even think about traveling unless it was absolute dire emergency. But I tell you, Asif, you know, you cannot buy tickets on a PIA plane direct to Pakistan for love or for money. There's still huge swathes of people still going. You know, the Diyal, Mirpur are just full of, UK, British, Pakistanis that have gone back home.
No, but I know, but the thing is, what might happen, which people are coming to Pakistan thinking that it's okay for them to come back. Pakistan could become a red list country by tomorrow. Things you don't know, things are changing on a daily basis. And can you imagine once Pakistan or India or Bangladesh is a red list country, then how much of a problem and financial stress will cause people who have travelled to Pakistan?
No, most definitely. And these sort of things, when the UK government and the customs and the foreign office decide on which country will be part of that 33 red list countries, they do it overnight almost. They give you very little notice. We've had, people that were stuck in Spain that were saying, look, we've had no chance to come back before. It was a very sudden. I can see that happening for Pakistan and India and other countries as well.
Yeah, no, like in Scotland, all countries are red list countries, so they've solved that problem. And I'm pretty wouldn't be surprised if England does not do the same.
And also, I was listening to some news from Kashmir, from Pakistan. Places like Dadyal, they've already had 6 deaths now due to COVID. And you know what the health infrastructure is like. It is a third world country. It's not the best. And the government official was saying all this is attributable directly to those overseas British Kashmiris and Pakistanis that have arrived. They don't isolate for 10 days, they mix openly, and they are killing their own family and loved ones when they are reaching here.
No, most definitely. Like I said, you mentioned, I do have my own uh, uh, PCR clinic, and I've had occasions when the airline has called me, asked me whether this person has undertaken a test at your clinic, and on a number of occasions I've said no. So there are a lot of people that are travelling on uh, fake PCR certificates. The thing is, they might be positive, and if they are travelling that way, obviously there is the health implicated, the cost of that. They're putting not themselves at risk, they're putting everybody else who's traveling with them, and also the families that they're hoping to visit, they're putting them at risk as well.
Absolutely. So for me, for the sake of 30, 40, £50, for example, you're trying to save, you're trying to cut budget stuff. For you're sitting next to potentially a stranger. You don't know what their underlying conditions are. You don't know what health implications that you may have. You may pass it on to them. When you go back to your own village or back to your own home, you're going to obviously meet your immediate family or friends. Again, you are now the super spreader, and you are passing it on to a huge amount of people. What sort of ethical, moral, religious sort of kind of mindset does it take that you're going to go around infecting, half a dozen to a dozen or so people just because you're trying to save money? And the other reason, Asif, is 1 or 2 people have actually tested positive and were showing symptoms, and they are now there to take a proper PCR test. The fact that you will come back positive and they won't be able to travel, so they'd rather pay for a fake one. That's just appalling to me.
No, most definitely. But if they are planning now to come back, there's no getting away from it. If they've travelled on a fake certificate, once they do come back, they will be tested, and there is no getting away. And all I recommend is that if you are considering traveling to Pakistan, India, or whatever, make sure it's absolutely essential and you need to try. If not, just don't, because it's not worth it financially, or it's not worth obviously putting the 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 health of your relatives or your friends abroad at risk.
And Asif, another thing is those providers that are for the sake of £50, £80, for them it's a lucrative. This is a money spinner for them. They are earning hundreds and thousands of pounds. Huge amount of people are going to them, and all they're doing is reprinting the results form, such as yourselves, they are scanning and just changing the name and address of the person that's going. But I tell you what's a giveaway sign, Asif. For example, sometimes there's a stamp, for example, maybe Vanit Clinic that you own and run. It's on there, and it'll be the same place for all the certificates. And people are noticing that this is a fake PCR test.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Like I said, I've had a number of calls from the airline. Some people have travelled on a certificate with a date 7 days old. Now they're not realising that, for example, a PCR test is only valid for 3 days, and
Yeah.
others have travelled with certificates of but like you said, with the same date, same time, but the name has been changed. But they are getting a lot more strict, and anyone who is considering doing that, they're taking a huge risk. And it's
Because I've
definitely,
had No, I've had cases now, and two or three of them, mind you, not huge, whereby they've gone to the airport with a fake PCR test in the family of two or three, and the authorities at the airport have identified this is a fake one, and they've sent them back. So their ticket has now become invalid, and they aren't able to get a refund. So for the sake of 30-40 pounds saving, you are potentially now having to lose the cost of a ticket, which at the moment is about 600-700-800 pound now for a direct flight to Pakistan or India.
no, but yes, most definitely. But like I say, it's not everyone, but there is a sizable majority that are going down this route, and it's a decision that they've made themselves. And all I can say is it is just not worth it.
Yeah, that's fine. Just a couple of questions there, Asif. If you already had a COVID-19 negative in Pakistan, for example, 3 days before departure, why is there a need for a test in day 2 and day 8 in the UK when you arrive?
Okay, the reason why they added these two extra tests is that what they're trying to do is trying to catch any variant of COVID that might arise from abroad. So that's hence the reason why these two tests are now being undertaken, and they only be undertaken by one organization because they want to collect the data just from one place to make sure that no variant enters the UK.
Yeah, that's right. So normally you can go to your local community pharmacy and you can get your PCR test, but on arrival, you have to quarantine at home, and these
Yes.
tests will be sent to you directly from approved providers such as Vinit Clinic that Asaf runs.
Sorry,
Go on.
Ali, can I stop you there? No, sorry. For these two tests, for day 2 and day 8, these are only provided by the government. It's only one organisation that's providing these, and that's the government itself. And there's a portal that you need to
Okay.
register and purchase these tests. The only test
Okay.
approved providers at the moment is the ones if you leave in the UK. For these tests for day 2 and day 8, it's just one
Sure.
organisation.
No, fair enough. Thank you for that clarification. So they will send it through and then you have to dispatch it back, and they will do this genomic test whereby they identify any new strain. So that's the purpose behind that. I hope that is okay, Javed. Are you saying there is a variant, a Pakistani COVID version of the virus? Javed, we don't know. The virus mutates, it changes. There's 2 or 3 that now have been identified in Nigeria. There's a South Africa strain which is 70% more virulent than what we have here in the UK with the original COVID virus. Viruses each change. The flu virus changes every year. This is what viruses do. They keep on replicating, they keep on changing. And some strains may be resistant to the vaccines. So the vaccine needs to be changed in order to make sure it's still effective for the new strain as well. For example, I think the scientists are saying that by summer they will have the AstraZeneca vaccine sort of changed to make sure it's also effective for the mild cases of the South Africa strain as well. So because they need to keep abreast of all the changes. So I hope that answers your question. We're now sort of towards the end of the show. So this is just normally a half an hour show that I have every Thursdays as well. And there's someone else who just said, what about people going to Pakistan for 2 weeks, and they're having to isolate for 10 days, is that realistic? I said, well, realistic or not, that's the rules, aren't they?
Yes. No, like I said, if you are traveling abroad, you're coming back, you have to quarantine for 10 days.
Most
There's no
definitely.
getting away.
And my Absolutely. And my thing is, Asif, the government and the border officials and the airport staff are absolutely serious about this. On the first day, they caught a half a dozen or so people here at the Birmingham airport. One individual was claiming ignorance, claiming, not the knowledge that didn't wash. The other 4 were lying about their route of transit, and they got fined £10,000 each. You know, I don't know what more of an example do you want, unless it's absolutely essential. And when we say essential, someone's about to die, you need medical treatment, or you're going in for educational reasons, that is classed as essential. Anything else is deemed non-essential, and there's absolute no justification for you to travel. Javed, I wish you all the best tomorrow for your vaccine. Our du'as and prayers are with you. And inshallah, you will be an advocate for encouraging more people to take up the vaccine, because the Pakistani and the Muslim community are still below where they should be as well. So, Asaf, now we're just coming towards the end. I'm going to give you the last few minutes just to sum things up, maybe just give a final message to our viewers.
Okay. All I can say is that, as you mentioned earlier, if it's absolutely essential, then please don't. It's just not worth it, and it financially it's not worth it. Mentally, it's no good. So just best thing is to stay at home, and hopefully, the next few months, things will improve. Then you should be able to travel, hopefully, as you normally would have done. But for this precise moment in time, best thing is just stay at home.
Thank you, Asaf. You had it from the expert who lives and breathes about international travel. He's got his own PCR testing clinic in Solihull by the name of Vanid. He's telling you, do not go abroad and put yourself under that risk, under that, stress. Because there's so many rules and regulations that you need to familiarize yourself with, act accordingly, and do so. And one mistake, one bit of oversight will land you in a huge amount of trouble and also a huge amount of fine. So my advice to everyone is, please, unless it is an essential travel, please do not risk yourselves or your family by going overseas. Hopefully another month, another 6, the way the cases are declining rapidly, hopefully by the end of March we shall have the ease of the lockdown as well. Thank you everyone for thoughts and comment. Thank you, Brother Javed, for your comment as always. Please look after yourselves and each other until next week. God bless.